Vishal made the most incredible podcast and post starring me. And you all should check it out. It's Think Tank, hosted by the Trey Holder, and it's coming out next week.
Yep.
You can speak to that.
Yeah, so here's the deal. We have Chloe on first next week, and then Maddie's going to be on in a few weeks. So that's one of the big initiatives we're doing at Essentially Sports. But we're a top 10 global sports publisher. We've done over 2 billion views on editorial over the last few years, and we specialize in niche sports, so like your NASCARs, golf, tennis, Olympics, women's sports. So, you know, it's awesome to have Catherine here, who's the Director of Collegiate Partnerships for Under Armour.
Some fan support, I love that. I paid them.
So I think a good place to start, Catherine, is, I mean, you've had a unique experience, not only brand side, but team side. So, you know, Pepsi, New Balance, the Mets, Yoga Alliance, and now you're at Under Armour. So you want to walk us a little bit through that journey?
Yeah, I mean, it could take a little bit, so I'll try not to bore you, but I've had a very non-linear career path, and it might not be the most direct route to any one goal, but like to me, it's been really critical in terms of being able to sit in multiple seats throughout my career and have just a wider aperture as I look at programs and problems and opportunities. So I actually started my sports career at DC United of Major League Soccer, and it was at a time when MLS and DC United were only 4 years old, so I'm aging myself if anyone remembers when MLS was kicked off. But it was an amazing opportunity to learn the business, from ticket sales to customer service to community outreach, foundation work. After business school, I joined Pepsi, Global 51, Fortune 500 company, totally changing the experience on its head. And I worked in baseball, managing the national partnerships that MLB, that Pepsi and MLB had, as well as the local relationships across 15 clubs. From there, I went to New Balance, and so I know Erica was here earlier. We just connected, but I was at New Balance managing its cause marketing partnerships. Then I transitioned back into the world of baseball, working for the New York Mets directly for 4 years, and then I worked at New York Roadrunners, which manages the New York City Marathon, the world's largest marathon, and ironically was part of the deal making that brought New Balance to New York Roadrunners. So one lesson is never burn bridges, because the world is small and it follows you as you go. From there, I took a little bit of a pivot. I was like, maybe sports isn't it for me anymore. Like maybe there's an opportunity to transition. I really appreciated Maddie's vulnerability on mental health and the importance of it. So having been a former college athlete myself, not that means that I had mental health concerns, but having been a former college athlete, when I could no longer compete as a runner, I actually did go through a little bit of mourning of like, my identity has been I'm a runner, I'm a sister, I'm a runner, I'm a daughter, I'm a runner. What am I when I'm not a runner? And so from that, I found yoga, became a yoga teacher. Long-winded way of saying at one point I headed up marketing and communications for Yoga Alliance, thinking that maybe that was a better space for me, but there was always this nagging kind of pulling me back into the sports industry, and there was an opportunity to join Under Armour, obviously a tremendous brand, very endemic to sport. One of the things we were talking about earlier today was nothing against my friends at Pepsi, but Pepsi can live without sport, and sport can live without Pepsi. Sport cannot live without outfitting, and outfitting cannot live without sport. And so I really love being so close to the action, so close to the blood, sweat, tears, dirt, etc. that comes with being on the outfitting, footwear, and apparel side of the business. And so joined Under Armour 9 months ago, first time in the collegiate marketing space. So bringing an external perspective to a very, quickly in my learning, complicated industry space that is forever changing. The one thing that gave me one thing that gave me confidence jumping into it was probably the fact that even my peer set now, who has 30 years plus experience in college, is not an expert in what's happening. It's changing so rapidly, from the media deals to the conference realignments to the collectives, the NIL that marketing, the athletes now have with respect to marketing. So it gave me a little bit more confidence of jumping in and seeing what I can do on this side.
I mean, that's so fascinating from a college partnerships perspective, because we can rattle off a few schools like Notre Dame, Wisconsin,
Yeah.
South Carolina was playing in a little bit for a
4
Final
o'clock,
Four.
in case anyone doesn't know, there is the women's Final Four going on, and I did ask up front, I was like, so am I going to be in front of a TV at 4 by any chance? So go
Should have
Gamecocks.
wheeled one out.
I know, right?
But it's like, can you break down what goes into that fit, right? When you guys are evaluating, and I know you're 9 months in, but it's like from a high level, how are you evaluating that? And then how are even the universities going through partnerships?
Yeah, I mean, so these deals are very complex. We're not just, it's gone are the days of when we outfit one sport at a university, which actually when I was at UNC where I ran track, the soccer team was outfitted differently from the running team, from every other team. So they were actually bifurcated way back when. Nowadays, it's all underneath one roof for the most part. And so it's not as if we are just serving the needs of American football, or we are just serving the needs of men's and women's basketball, or we're just serving the needs of volleyball. Like, we really have to be in the game of the cleats behind field hockey, what's going on that lacrosse needs. They all have a slight tweak and difference. So first of all, we've got to make sure that we have the product. Like, we have no authenticity, we have no business in being in it if we cannot deliver the product at the highest level, at the right time, at the right moment, and those sorts of things. Thankfully, we were born in college sports. I think a lot of people are familiar with the Under Armour story, and we were literally born in team sports in American football at the University of Maryland in College Park. And so we do have a little bit of authenticity just from that, changing the game, creating an industry of a sweat wicking t-shirt that never existed before. But from there, a lot more goes into it. I remember Brian Swatek, who's on my team. Wait, Brian, I'm calling you out. I remember my first 2 weeks on the job, a meeting with supply chain. That was my first meeting. And I'm like, why does supply chain want to talk with me? Like, I don't understand. I quickly understood why supply chain wants to talk with me. I mean, again, we cannot deliver the product regardless of how well it's designed, regardless of how well it functions. We, again, can't really deliver on our promises. So from a brand side, there's a lot of just like the factor of the business itself that we operate. Yeah. Then there's okay, who are the partners that align with our values? Who are the partners that align with geographic interest? Like, where's our consumer base? What brands out there are actually a good fit? Like, not just from the value standpoint, but just even a brand perspective. We work really well with kind of that nitty gritty, kind of like underdog type mentality. That's how we view ourselves. We're a challenger brand in the marketplace. We work really well with athletic brands, whether it's our professional athletes down to our college athletes, whether it's our college partnerships or anything in between. So there's a lot of that as well that goes into it. One of the things that I actually have the pleasure of working on is somewhat building backwards. What is our strategy and what is our strategic approach to it? It makes sense that we're in it, but why is the why? Can't answer for you 100% on the college and how they're evaluating deals, but having sat on the property side most of the time, it's actually really similar. It's you want to be aligned with a brand that's going to activate you, a brand that's not going to just sit on your IP rights so that the competitor can't. That's one of the things. I have a history of challenger brands. So I worked at a Pepsi, not a Coke. I worked at the Mets, not the Yankees. I really like that challenger brand mentality. And it was one of those things where when we came in for the Yankees, for instance, in 2009, it was the first year that we were transitioning pouring rights. That was,
they won the World.
And they won the last time that they won World Series too. Sorry if there are Yankees fans out there.
I'm a Red Sox fan, so that is the last time you
okay with
guys.
that.
That's the last time you got to the World Series.
So one of the things that we had to actually coach the Yankees on was we're not Coke. Like, we are going to actually activate you. We're going to use your IP at marketplace. We're going to challenge your assumptions on how a partner comes to the marketplace and leverages things. So having been on property side, I know the New York Mets, we didn't even have $1 million marketing budget at the time. We needed brands that were going to bring us out. We needed brands that were going to buy media to support us. We needed brands that were going to put us on shelf at Stop and Shop or partner with a Taco Bell and do a 4th of July engagement. So my guess is it's the same thing. And as I'm sitting with our collegiate partners, we actually just came from an event on the rooftop of the same hotel earlier with over 200 guests within our men's basketball family. My guess is if you would ask them, it would be the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you covered so much there, but I think a good segue there is to NIL.
Yeah.
And I mean, you taught me this. I didn't even know this. You're starting to activate Curry brand within your big athletes.
We are.
Should we do the video first, or do you want to?
Let's do the video first. Everyone loves a video.
This is awesome because one of the first things I ever did in sports was cover Curry Kemp with Under Armour. And this was 2018, I think. I think it was so before Curry brand, right? It's like he was But the Curry camp was my favorite, and we did a lot. We did Nike stuff, we did bronze camp. It's like Steph's camp was always my favorite. But now seeing this, and then especially the women's basketball side, I think if you want to kind of give us a high level from like how it happened, the motivation, even choosing the player, and like where this is going to lead to with Curry Brand.
Certainly. So if you are not watching women's basketball right now, tune in. You're going to have a treat of a weekend. All 4 teams are just absolutely unbelievable. We still have, I don't know if it's the right phrase, a dog in the fight, but still have a dog in the fight. Again, 4 p.m., South Carolina. Malaysia's amazing. Like, she's the first NIL athlete who we have signed under the Curry brand. She's also actually the first NIL athlete who we've signed for her entire collegiate career. And that's big for us. NIL deals are not big for us. We've actually done over 700 NIL deals since the inception of the ability to market athletes directly in college. I will say, proud note, I know this isn't solely focused on women, but 66% of them have been with our female athletes, and it's something that we take a lot of pride in. So very proud of that moment. But this is really special. First of all, Malaysia's been with the brand. So even in her grassroots high school playing days, she knew the brand, she knew Curry, she participated in our grassroots types of events. So it helps that she was already on our radar, she was already part of our family. And I won't say that I'd like to say this, but I won't say she chose South Carolina just because it's an Under Armour school, but she trusts Dawn Staley, as I think any of us would if we could. We've been an Under Armour school at South Carolina for many, many years now. And the relationship is there. So she had the trust with Dawn, the institution has trust with us. Yeah. She has trust in us, we have trust in her.
Her parents, right? Her parents trust.
Oh, yeah. So I had the pleasure of being at the Elite 8 on Sunday up in Albany, and I sat with her mom. Can you hear me?
No, I was there.
Oh, you were there? Oh, yeah. So I had the pleasure of sitting with her mom, and like just the joy and pride that her mom, first of all, just has for her daughter is absolutely unbelievable. But I will go so far as to say, like, she had such joy and pride of the partnership with us. Like, you could really see it. She was so grateful that we connected the dots in that partnership, that we've maintained it. We, as she called it, are taking care of her girl. That means a lot to us, and we don't take that for granted one bit. And I mean, if anyone tuned in, and I know we've got later on a video from Paris, but if anyone tuned in November 1st when South Carolina played Notre Dame, and that was the first time that both Malaysia and Hannah Hidalgo from Notre Dame were playing as freshmen, your eyes had to gravitate to both women. I mean, truly, like the way in which they just commanded the ball, and she's not even a starter, she comes off the bench still, and yet she's won all the accolades that she has and performs the way that she does. So I'm sure there was a question in there, not sure if I answered it, but I'm just super really like proud of this moment for our brand as Under Armour, our relationship with Curry and the Curry brand, and then obviously what it means to our partnership with South Carolina and our partnership with this tremendous young athlete.
And then how much of that is like the ethos of Curry brand, right? So, when you're looking at these partnerships, like Steph's influence on that and like his underdog story, like there's so many connections to Under Armour.
Yeah.
And then so is this going to be a really important part of these partnerships, is really emphasizing that Curry brand tie-in versus Under Armour?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I really don't. I think that is something that we at Under Armour do have to figure out. What is that going to look like? I don't necessarily think it will be, nor should it be, the way that Jordan is to Nike. Jordan, I'm a UNC alum, so obviously, like, who doesn't respect Jordan as an athlete, as an entrepreneur, as everything that he is? But Curry is a different athlete than who Jordan was, and they both matured as athletes at different stages of the industry. So I don't think it would even be fair for us to put Curry and Jordan against each other. Yeah. I think actually in many ways, I hope we don't do the same exact thing, because we should learn it from history and be like, oh, okay, it's matured here, how do we mature there? But it's a really remarkable relationship that we do have with Steph as an athlete. He's phenomenal himself. He very much was the underdog, was somewhat underrated. Again, that comes with that mentality that we look at from both brands. But one of the things that we do need to do, to go back to that original thing, is where does Under Armour play in the basketball ecosystem? Where does Curry play in the ecosystem? How do we make sure they are complementary and not at all competitive? And I think there's a way to get there. I know that there's a way to get there, just don't know how to get there yet. Thankfully, it's not my job solely.
I got to do one more on Steph. I covered Duke basketball when his younger brother Seth was playing. I remember Sonia Curtis's mom come into the practices, and this was when Steph had like his ankle problems in Golden State, and she'd go to Coach K and she's like, do you think Stephen's gonna make it? Like, should he go back to school? Like, I don't think this is gonna work out. Like the most panicked mother thing, and I was like, now looking back, I'm like, oh my God. Like I remember sitting in that room and Coach was like, no, it's gonna be all right. Like he's gonna figure it out. Like he's good enough. But it's like seeing that whole tie-in story and then how you guys uplifted it as a brand is like so fascinating. That's awesome. But now, so I mean, we've talked about women's sports a lot today. How much of that is going into the actual product strategy for Under Armour? Like we're seeing the rise in not only basketball, but like other verticals. Like, are you guys expanding product lines? Like, how are you appealing more there?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd be very foolish if we weren't taking many pages from the female consumer. And not only catering to her, but quite frankly, taking her into him and them, right? So 100% we're looking at it. I mean, if I'm very truthful, there were many times when I did not necessarily view Under Armour as a brand for me, particularly having been a runner 20 some odd years ago. Under Armour wasn't even around when I was a competitive runner, so it wasn't a brand for me when I was the competitive athlete. But we didn't start in running, we started in American football, we started in team sports. So as an athlete and then former athlete, wasn't there. And then when I got into more the health and wellness side of things and being a yoga practitioner and then a yoga teacher, etc., also not a brand for me necessarily. And so it's one of those things that, particularly now that I'm on the inside, it's a brand for me. But I'm recognizing the beautiful, like, dare I say, like, delicious, like, materials that we're using, the textures of it, the design points that go into it. I think our product is there. I think we have to catch up to our product, actually, with the messaging and the marketing of it. And I think, actually, NIL is a big piece of it. Like, I loved hearing Maddie just talk about the seeding of the necklace. We need to do more of that. And we do that with our athletes at our current schools. But what I'm challenging us to think about, and I'm not saying it's the right answer, by the way, but just to contemplate it, and again, this is almost that lens, that wider aperture from the earlier conversation. What if we took the Malaysias of the world who went to a Nike school or who went to an Adidas school? They're not necessarily able to compete in us based off of their outfitter agreement with their university, but they're a brand that had an affiliation with us. How do we continue to work with them? We can seed them product for when they're not competing and on official university business. Is that something that we want to do? Keep that relationship alive. Like, I was chatting with my counterpart on the brand marketing side, and I said, what would success look like? Like, what does it mean to you? And she said, when the athlete chooses to wear us, when they're leaving the locker room and they're choosing to put on their Under Armour apparitions, you know, versus like their Jordans. And so I think that is one of those areas where we can control that broader than just our university partnerships. And if we can do it at our university partnerships, that's amazing. So I use the just adverb like loosely there, but yeah, I think there's opportunities.
I love it. Now I guess that's a good time to cue up that the Paris video. Let's do it.
Video.
Let's get better today. The first ever NCAA game played in Paris. We have NCAA basketball. Ooh, yeah. So hard to raise your hand. Not B.I.G. not limited to the sky. If the girls cry, then they me as a prince. With a bed, that's covered in cheetah print. For the most swag, I'm the culprit. Drake the unknown, you ain't on this. Shoe game just like the owner that was so impressive. And then season on the token.
So, I don't know if you can tell. that the voiceover said that it was the first NCAA basketball game in Paris. And I don't know if you noticed, but they were women. NCAA chose women to open up and to play in Paris and to start the season. And they happened to be 2 Under Armour teams, which we benefited greatly from. I was maybe 3 months on the job, guys, like maybe, and it was one of the more remarkable things, and I've had great jobs, and this is one of the most remarkable things to be in Paris, particularly to see how the Gamecocks travel. They travel deep, and to see the excitement around it, to see excitement in life in the young women. I mean, they're our future. Like, they are literally our future, whether they end up being professional ballers, or they end up being politicians, whether they end up being marketers and media members. I mean, they are truly our future, and to be able to be a small part of a memory that they are going to have forever. Yeah. And I know collaborations came up earlier. We collaborated with Rich Fresh, who makes $5,000 custom-made tracksuits, and yet we collaborated with them, and these women and the administrators and coaches surrounding them who support them daily were able to literally sit with him in locker room prior to the making of it and provide their input on the look, the feel, what they like. And so to your nod earlier of how are we catering to the female consumer, this is exactly how we start. And it actually is using our athletes and leveraging them and talking to them and understanding, what do you like? You know, what's missing? What's different? Why are you choosing a Jordan over us when you can choose? And we're humble enough, thankfully, to be asking the questions, and we're determined enough to be taking those answers and integrating it into product for the future. So this is amazing. We wish that we could have had a Paris final for Sunday, but Notre Dame and South Carolina would have had a meet in Albany. But it's a tremendous way to kick off the season, and really hope that we can take it home on Sunday.
I love it. I love it. Now, wrapping up, I think it's a good thing to do where during your first 9 months, give me like something that has gone just as you expected, and then something where you're like, oh, I didn't expect this, but it's like a crazy learning.
Oh my God. I right now want to blame having been on a 6 a.m. flight from Cleveland to here this morning and deny answering this. But let me think. What has gone exactly right?
Yeah, like what's like, you know, okay, I came in to do this and we're like knocking it out of the park. Like.
So I kind of look at things with a critical lens. I don't think we're knocking anything out of the park, but I also don't think that's a bad thing. Yeah. It's just an honest assessment of, oh, this is where we are. And I challenge my team, I challenge myself, I challenge my manager, I challenge, coworkers of just asking a lot of questions just to understand where is our starting point. Because making it up, if we can all get to New York City. I love New York City. We can all get there. But we need to know, are we starting in Austin? Are we starting in Phoenix? Are we starting in Cleveland? Are we starting in Paris? So it's not a direct answer to your question, but I think it's going right, it's going not right at the same time. It's just all right now, keeping the lens of a student, keeping that love of curiosity. Curiosity is one of my core values as a human. Yeah. Humility is another core value. I know Maddie used excellence earlier, which is also a core value. Serenity is too, and I don't know how it all fits together. But I think being open to asking questions and being okay with the answers. And if it means that we're starting in Phoenix and we're getting to New York, great. If it means we're in Cleveland to get to New York, great. I probably should use Baltimore now that I think about it, since we're Baltimore.
I was going to say, you didn't say anything.
But bad mark on brand manager here. But next time. But I think it's an illustrative example, obviously. But I think nothing's gone swimmingly well. Nothing's gone swimmingly poorly. It's just sort of it is where it is, and I'm fact-finding. And my team is being very patient with me in this fact-finding expedition. And I dare say that we're excited actually about that fresh set of eyes and that fresh perspective coming in and that wider aperture, because it's going to get us to better. Yeah. And hopefully one day better gets us to great, and one day great gets us to whatever's beyond that.
Awesome, everyone give a round of applause.
Thank you.